In this video, we're going to discuss, the notion and possibly, I'm going to theorize about this, but it's plausible enough to make sense. The reason why folks need less sleep sometimes when they take nootropics, and how it's cool when it happens. Coming up. Okay, for those of you that are nootropics enthusiasts, I've got 4 major things to tell you. If you are new to nootropics, if you're brand new, it's like 0 to 1 years in, we wrote a guide for you. It's called Smarter, Better, Faster. Get it at livecortex.com. It's a digital guide. The tagline is a surgical guide to using nootropics for total mental dominance. It lays out how to use them. It gives you the logic behind nootropics. It talks about racetams. It talks about stacking. It talks about what to put together. It talks about how to cycle. And it gives you pro stacks that took me about 9 years to figure out. It's called Smarter, Better, Faster. It's digital, so you can download it on any device you have. Download it at livecortex.com. That one's $24. Be a good $24 spend. Livecortex.com for that product. Secondly, if you're anywhere in your time in taking nootropics, we wrote a racetam guide that has 80 plus very powerful racetam stacks. Okay, I'm talking about paramiracetam, modafinil, CDP choline, vinpocetine stacks. I've refined the dosages on these stacks that I've literally replicated modafinil with other stacks. I've replicated the limitless experience with many, many stacks. You get access to those stacks if you get the racetam guide. That thing's $24.99. Buy it at livecortex.com. You can download it right away for any device you have and have the stacks right away. Those links will be in the description box, by the way, for those of you thinking about pulling the trigger on those products. Thirdly, we created a product. It's a Cortex. We created a nootropic stack. We have our own stack. It's called Cortex. It's used in 13 or so countries. Pretty powerful. Folks call it the only pre-made stack that works. I'm a nootropics enthusiast. I was taking a stack to make my brain run really well for 18 or so hours a day in one of my previous companies, and I formulated that in a pre-made stack. It's called Cortex. Get that at livecortex.com. We'll ship it right to your house. We'll ship it right to your business. We'll ship it right to where you're at. And you can have brain performance delivered to your doorstep via the Cortex Nootropic Stack. And then lastly, if you need stack consulting, you need us to help you optimize a stack, make a stack better, answer questions about nootropics, shave things off your stack. You have questions answered about nootropics that we can help you with. 40-minute call with me, 15 additional email correspondence. It's a consult package, $65. Buy all that stuff at livecortex.com. You will not be surprised. You will be very surprised, but you won't be. But we'll be very happy with our stuff. We are really in the interest of creating elite level nootropic products. All right, so check it out. You'll often hear people say that they take particular nootropic compounds and they need less sleep as a result of taking them. After them, they'll be like, well, I took a nootropic compound and then I really only needed 5 or 6 hours of sleep. You hear this pretty frequently enough, and then as a result, folks are functioning and they're like, wow, I'm functioning normal off of 5 hours sleep. That would really require that I typically do 8 hours of sleep or something. This happens to me. It happens to many people in the nootropics community, and it is a real thing. The reason I think this happens is because one of the primary things that your brain does when you go to sleep is try to reset the system of neurotransmitter production, right? You get this time to rest. You consolidate memories. There's all this stuff going on which put your brain in a state so that the next day when you go out and function and do your thing, your brain can work well via neurotransmission essentially being reset. That rest period where your brain goes into these different spindles and does all this interesting stuff, right? It sort of optimizes and renews your capacity to fire and utilize neurotransmitters, these chemical messengers in the brain that allow you to do every brain function you do, from focus to motivation to verbal fluency to everything else in between. All the things that we take nootropics to positively affect. And so, recently, what prompted me to do this video is, I took some Uniferam, which is a compound that increases acetylcholine in the cerebral cortex. So it's like the entire processing, a center of your brain. That's the frontal lobes, that's the occipital lobes, that's all of the main processing lobes of your brain. So you're talking about where you do all your coordination and planning too, the prefrontal cortex. And so, yeah, it basically improved every facet of my brain, this Uniferam. I took it's a very small dose. It was 4 milligrams sublingual, 4 or 5 milligrams sublingual dose. It's powerful stuff. It's very powerful stuff. And literally for the next 2 days after I took that Uniferam dose, I noticed I needed way less sleep to function, optimally. And that's probably because, I mean, look, when you go to sleep, your brain works on renewing the functionality of acetylcholine. That's one of the neurotransmitters uniform and many other nootropics affect. Well, if I've got that optimized via, a chemical optimization, right? It makes plausible sense. This is just my position on it. This is my theory on it. It makes plausible sense that the nootropic made it so that you just needed less sleep, and that's why this happens. You've got a chemical compound in there doing, I don't want to say exactly what sleep would do in terms of replenishing neurotransmitters, but it is allowing the brain to increase the quantity and thus the usage of that particular neurotransmitter. I mean, that's not questionable. That is definitive. That's what uniform, as an example, does. And that's what particular other neurotransmitters do, like aniracetam and oxiracetam in the case of acetylcholine in the hippocampus. So that's just my position on it. I would end by saying that does not mean take nootropics, get less sleep, because that's not sustainable. Eventually you're going to burn out. Eventually you're going to get to a point where you're not functioning correctly, where you're going to need to sleep still. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to do this biohack. I think biohackers get this wrong, and then I won't have to sleep as much. It is sustainable for a certain period of time, but over time it's not sustainable. So look, I mean, the practical application might be if you need less sleep over the course of the next week because you're on final exams coming up, or you're studying, or you're doing some other thing, or you're building a company, or you're programming and you need to code, so you need to really crank some stuff out. Yeah, consider some nootropics. Uniform is one good example. The studies on toxicity there are very light. I mean, there aren't many, so approach with caution. Cycle it, take it maybe once or twice within a week. Shoot for something like Noopeps, the racetams, aniracetam, oxiracetam, pramiracetam if you respond well to it, phenylpiracetam as well. And I think you'll notice that you can get an hour or 2 or 3 less sleep and still function optimally because you're taking the nootropics that are working on the neurotransmitters that sleep would replenish. You get what I'm saying? But over time, after a week, you want to just sort of dial down the nootropics, and you want to make sure then you go back to a schedule of trying to get your sleep. You never want to try to just super hardcore sustainably get less sleep via substituting the neurotransmission with nootropics. I just don't think it's sustainable. You're gonna, that's a ticket to burn out. I've done it before, and I was burnt out. I needed more sleep than usual thereafter, and that's not something you want to do. But in the short term, absolutely you can do it. And that is why when folks take certain nootropics, they notice that they can function better off of less sleep. What's up, everybody? Ryan here. Thanks for watching the video. Really appreciate you being with me. But listen, if you're serious about taking your nootropics game to another level, to the pro level, if you're serious about learning more about nootropics and fully understanding how to surgically use nootropics, that Smarter, Better, Faster guide that you see on the screen, that's the guide for you. It's a very powerful digital guide that you can download for any device you have that'll teach you about nootropics, give you a bunch of powerful stacks. That's for new people, and it's for people that have been in the game for 5 years or more. And then if you're interested in learning strictly about racetams, or if you just want 80 plus pro racetam stacks, we lay that out. We break down each racetam, and we give you the sublingual and the oral stacks. These are combinations of racetams and a bunch of other compounds that give you very particularly powerful brain states. Get it at the Racetam God Guide. That's a digital guide that you can download and start getting access to the information right away. And if you are looking for a nootropic stack that delivers everything, I mean, look, Cortex, our stack, that's our pre-made nootropic stack. We sell it in 12 countries. Wall Street folks, business people, corporate people, nootropic experimenters, everybody else in between, speech givers. I mean, folks that give speeches for a living, get the stack, use the stack, religiously use the stack. If you're looking for an all-out balanced stack, a stack that an entrepreneur, after 6.5 years of being an entrepreneur and having a lot of demand on his brain created, that's me. That's my stack. Get it at livecortex.com. It's being called the only pre-made stack that works. Very powerful frontal lobe, mental energy, speed of processing, motivation, nootropic stack, basically for productivity. Okay, get all that stuff at livecortex.com. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you next time.